Spyro Reignited Trilogy, Mass Effect Andromeda, and Dragonmeet. This is Staying In. So lads, I discovered a wonderful thing this morning when I was leaving for work. I had a very busy day at work, and just before I was leaving, my partner directed my attention to the windowsill. And on said windowsill was my shoes.
Yeah.
And above my shoes was what I can describe as a swag bag full of sweets and chocolates. And I thought, that's a bit odd. Yeah. What's all this about? And apparently, on this day of recording, it's St. Nicholas Day, once a year. My partner's from Slovakia. And once a year, to celebrate St. Nicholas Day, the tradition is that children would clean their shoes and leave them out, and they'd wake up the next day, and if they've been good, there's sweets there for them. If they've been bad, there's potatoes.
I mean, for you, that's a win-win.
It is a win-win. Yeah, for me, it's edible. It's not like coal. It's edible. Win-win. Yeah. But yeah, for me, it was an absolute treasure trove of goodies and sweets. So just this whole lovely mix of things. It's a beautiful, isn't that a lovely tradition? And I've said now, we're doing that every year.
Yeah. Just
before Christmas, and Easter shouldn't be the one that has to have a monopoly on the chocolate. Mm-hmm. Just before Christmas, before even Christmas Day, you get a little bit of a slight little Christmas Day treat.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and just coming off the back of Christmas Day, as I have done, where I was equally spoiled, was just wonderful, really.
They got some good traditions, haven't they, the Europeans? They've got some really good ones.
Yeah.
Like, leaving sweets around on top of shoes. I think that's a good one.
But isn't there, like, the German tradition, isn't there Krampus, which is like the anti-Santa or something, or the anti-Father Christmas?
And he's like, you've been bad, so I'm going to murder you, or something. I think
something along those lines.
Yeah. And then, what do the French? Do the French do any really good? Well, they have like Liberty Day. They do you know what? Europeans know how to celebrate. Do you know the UK has I'm going to go on a rant now. Do you know the UK has the least bank holidays, like public holidays, out of like most European countries? Do you know that?
What kind of holiday would be? What could we justify having then, like to commemorate a particular event?
Well, you've got the national days that you don't get. So you've got St. George's Day, St. David's Day, St. Patrick's Day.
Don't get that.
I know, that's what I'm saying. We don't get that, but we could have those.
Yeah, we could, couldn't we?
Oh, well, I know as a tutor, Paddy's Day is a write-off. Teaching, it's just like a ghost town. Students are not here at all. It's Paddy's Day.
It's like, I've got a cold. No.
It's like all bets are off.
Yeah. You see, that would be good, wouldn't it? Like, we could celebrate...
Well, I think those are pre-existing events that could easily be assigned a bank holiday.
Yeah. Easily pushed in. Or, we could come up with our own. Like, for example, we could celebrate, for example...
October 3rd.
I mean, it's a good day, my birthday. Everybody could celebrate. We could celebrate, for example, what's big and popular that the kids would get behind. We could have we could have Floss Day, where like you have to go out into the streets and do the little floss dance move from Fortnite, and all the kids would get right behind that. Like, it'd be like, you'd have it on like, I don't know, when would you have it? When's ideal? I mean, maybe in the winter months, something like that, because a bit of exercise, get the body moving.
Chris, I'm beginning to think that Pete's been doing some research into our numbers and has realised that we're missing like the lower age group demographics. As Pete's like, quick, we need to say something to get the youngsters in.
I mean, Dan, I don't know about you, but maybe it's because I'm a man now in his early 30s. But when Pete said Floss Day, I honestly thought like dental.
Oh yeah,
floss.
I thought he was talking about dental work.
I mean, in all honesty, I'd be up for that as well.
Yeah.
Like celebrate Good Dental Health Day.
I'll tell you what I found. I went to the dentist the other day, lads, and obviously you've got to grit your teeth and bear it. And I was kind of worried about my teeth. I thought, oh my gosh, is there something wrong with them there? They don't look that good. I mean, they've never looked good, but this time they look quite bad. I can't remember who it was who described their teeth as being like a vandalised graveyard. But and it turns out it's tea.
Yeah, it stains your teeth, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a massive sigh of relief. I thought, oh, great.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
No, cleaned it absolutely fine. Sparkling, brand new.
Also
makes that ding sound when you smile.
I got told the other when I walked into the dentist, they said to me,
"Go away." The shutters went down.
Yeah, they said because I went in with a bottle of water with a slice of lime in it. because like I was like, oh, a nice little bit of water with a little bit of slice of fruit in there, just to make it all nice and just to spice it up a bit. And I walked into the dentist, and the reception behind the desk was just like, oh no, you can't have that. I was like, sorry, what? It's like I'm hydrating. This is a big part of my life. Water, and they said, oh no, you can't have lime in the water. It's just best to just have plain water. I was like, yeah, I'm sure it is, but like, it's just, oh no, because you're constantly just drinking a little bit of acid and just constantly like erodes the teeth. I was like, sure, fine, but like the sales pitch of just drink plain water. It's not that compelling. It's not compelling. I hate my dentists. I absolutely like...
Really?
I like going to them, and the person who does the actual dentistry stuff is absolutely fine. But I guess I don't hate my dentist. What I hate is going into a place where they're about to judge the way that you live your life. and I'm like, every morning I have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or something like that, and I was drinking drinking these fruit-infused water all the time, and I used to smoke and all that sort of stuff. And every time you go in, Mr. Willington, no, you can't have a slice of lime in your water. So I gave up smoking for you.
Pete, do you ever get your teeth deep cleaned?
I do, yeah.
Because I'd never had that done before until like a couple of months ago.
Oh.
And I just never have done. I hate going to dentist anyway, so I'm really bad and I put it off. But eventually I went there. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get them checked out, get it all sorted. You know what? I'm going to go in, I'm going to get deep clean, get it all sorted. And my wife was saying to me, definitely get them deep cleaned. You'll love it. You'll love how it feels and stuff like that. Like, brilliant.
Yeah,
okay, I was genuinely kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And then they did it, and it was one of the most painful and horrible experiences of my life. And it was horrible. And then when I came out, it was cold weather, and kind of like every time I breathed in, like all of my teeth were like on fire, it felt like. And I'm kind of like, they've broken me. They've broken my teeth. They've ruined me. And I came home, and she was like, oh, so how do you feel? I was like, this is horrible. That was a horrible experience. Why did you tell me to do that? Did you like that? She was like, oh, I've never had it done. I was like, you told me to get this done. And she was like, yeah, I just assumed you'd like it.
Mrs. Frost is in the wrong business. She should be a salesperson.
Yeah.
She talked me into that thinking it was going to be great, and it was a horrible experience.
That's like when you get a family of meerkats that push their youngest onto the road to check it's safe first.
You're lying there kind of like gripping like with all your shape, the arms of the chair that you're in, kind of your knuckles white. It's horrendous because they've got all the tools and stuff in there, and all you want to do is close your mouth. And I'm trying to get your... And I'm sure we've put a lot of listeners off. We're talking about dentistry and things. It's a weird start.
We've lost the kids. We've lost the people who don't like teeth. We've lost the people who are very militant about their lime slices in water. Yeah.
But like, I always... It's difficult when they stick that little tiny vacuum in your mouth. And I'm trying to get my tongue to move around my mouth to avoid that and the drill or whatever it is. It's a nightmare. Absolute nightmare.
Last time... Right, we'll get off this in a sec. But the last time I went to the dentist's, there was a new hygienist there, and obviously it was rummaging around in my mouth, doing whatever it was, and I'd made the mistake of saying, "Oh," like he was like, "Oh, hello, Mr. Willington." Blah blah blah. We talked a little bit casually about and I just, as a throwaway comment, said, oh yeah, tomorrow I'm going to be going, and I have to do this tonight because tomorrow evening I'm going to go and play board games. Starts rummaging around, and he started asking me questions like, so what sort of board games do you play? And I'm like, well,
do you think he was trying to make friends?
I don't know.
It's a great hook for a chat show, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a YouTube channel. It's an entire YouTube channel, but rather than like hot spicy chili challenge, it's just like get some dental work and interview. Oh, that'd be amazing. I got really stressed out at the end of last year, and kind of the start of this year. I got really anxious about like. I had a big what the guys over at Midlife Gamer called like a pile of shame, right? And I love this idea of like there's just a big pile of games and books and like graphic novels and all that sort of stuff that just like just sat there, and they're like, play me or watch me or whatever, and you don't. And I got really anxious about it, and I just thought, no, you know what? I'm going to treat myself to one game next year, and then I'm just going to kill the lot. And I'm going to play games, and if I like certainly on the PC, if I don't like them after like half an hour, gone, just like gone. No time for it. Same with books. It was really hard with myself, and I've managed to get through now. You'll be very pleased. I've now got through every single one of my games that I haven't. No pile of shame now. And in fact, I bought a Switch to celebrate. But I now have everything is gone, including, and the reason that I'm talking about like things wrapping up is because I realise I've sort of mentioned it about 5 or 6 podcasts, but never actually properly talked about it. I have now finished Mass Effect Andromeda, and I'm willing to talk about it.
Okay.
It sounds like I should be asking you to have a counsellor present or something, the way you just articulated that. Okay, how long did it take, and was it worth it?
60 hours, and just like...
Okay, so my experience with the Mass Effect universe is limited to Mass Effect 1.
Then,
and I don't get me wrong, I'm aware that Mass Effect 1 isn't the best one.
It's, yeah.
So what is Mass Effect? Sorry, I've never played these games. Okay. I know what they are. I know of them, and I know they're a big deal, and they've got a huge fan base, but I also know they're quite polarising.
Yeah, I would say so. So Mass Effect is a sci-fi game, the story being that human beings find alien life called the Turians, and after that they realise that there's more alien life, and they join like the galactic community in the Milky Way. And the series is about how these different races interact with one another, what these races are mostly all about. So humans are all about kind of exploration and diplomacy. The Solarians, which is a kind of they're more of a scientific, slightly espionage-based race. There's the Krogans, which are basically Klingons. They're very warlike, although and there's a bunch of other ones, but as the series goes on, there's a bunch of games in the series now. You realise that there's obviously a much more depth to all of them. Even in the first one, you realise that actually the Krogans aren't all war, they aren't all conflict. There's actually a deep history of them, and games 2, 3, Andromeda. I think even the mobile spin-offs kind of explore all that stuff a little bit. The actual games themselves are made by BioWare. They are action role-playing games, I suppose. The first one is a bit more RPG than the other ones. It's also, I think, probably the most difficult to get into. 2, I think, is the series' high point because it has a really nice mix of RPG and action. The third one
it's more of like a third-person action adventure, isn't it?
Yeah, it's third-person action adventure with a ton of RPG stuff in it. In that you are building up characters. The character in the first series is Shepard. In the new one is Ryder, or the Pathfinder. And they're like your own custom characters, and within a set parameter. So you're always the Pathfinder. You're always
Shepard.
Shepard. Yeah. So you in this new one, and it's very much like sci-fi shooting, that kind of thing. You do have a ship that you can fly around in space, but it's more about like selecting a planet to go to rather than, I don't know, like it's not like a shmup or anything like that. It's not like Elite either.
Yeah, you don't actually fly the plane. You don't fly the ship. You just say, "I want to go there," and then you go there.
And you explore, and it's very cool. And Andromeda is much more of a throwback, I think, to the original, which is much more open and more about exploring different planets. And you spend a lot more time in a vehicle that is able to explore the alien landscape. This one is set outside of the Milky Way. So the trilogy, the first 3 are set in the Milky Way, and it has a very definitive ending. 3 very definitive endings, which I won't go to because they're still definitely worth playing. Andromeda the idea is that basically at some point, I think between the first and the second game, they launch a ship which flies out to Andromeda, which is the nearest next galaxy, I think. And the idea is that they spend a bunch of time in deep space, like 300 or 400 years. They're all in stasis. They wake up, and the Andromeda Initiative was all about putting all of the races into this next into this next galaxy, and seeing how things get on, and like establishing colonies there and all that sort of stuff. So rather than just being spacefaring, multi-planet inhabiting species, they become multiple galaxy spanning species instead. And lo and behold, old grudges come up that and the certain alien type. They lean into their alien traits again, and they do lots of stuff like that. The combat in this one is probably the best playing. In fact, I would say, Dan, like if you wanted to play any of them, this is probably the one to play. It is the best playing Mass Effect game. The shooting is fantastic. It's a really good shooter. So there's a combat system. There's a lot of play. There's a lot of vertical movement. So you also have a jump jet, which allows you to jump above cover, and the addition of that is really interesting in cover-based shooting. There's powers to use, not as many, are a bit more fiddly than the previous games, but there's cool stuff in there that you can spec out your team in the way that you want. The multiplayer offering is pretty much dead, but from what I can see, it looked like it was quite a good idea. And the story, if you only play Andromeda, is really cool. It's really cool.
Does it matter if you haven't played the ones prior to it?
No,
it sounds like a massive world here.
Yeah,
do you not get lost in it if you not have the prior knowledge?
Because the cool thing is that you don't really need to know what happened in the Milky Way, because you're in this new one. You're setting up this new base, trying to populate this area as part of the Andromeda Initiative. Trying to
populate it,
yeah, like basically you're trying to bring people out of stasis.
Okay.
And basically, you get.
It didn't have some really unfortunate mini games.
No, unfortunately not. The opening, although they do tackle that, which is really interesting. They tackle a lot of different subjects, because one of the other things that BioWare is really good at is like moral choices, right? So you have to make ethical decisions. You have to basically question yourself as to how you would handle a situation, and then you make Ryder do that. And I was playing as Sarah Ryder. You can play as her brother or her, and playing as Sarah. And you make lots of ethical decisions throughout all of the main games, really, about how you should tackle difficult questions. Like, in the previous games, one of them was like, if you rewrite an AI, are you technically killing them or changing who they are? And then you can make decisions based on that. There's lots of really interesting things. And the idea of procreation does come up, and it is handled really interestingly. If you haven't played those first 3 games, Dan, this is probably the one to play. And the reason I say that is because it's basically like the Spark Notes version of the trilogy. Because it's basically the same story, as far as I can tell. Like, most of the same characters are same kinds of characters are there. They're all different. They're all named something completely different. But there's a character called Rex in the original trilogy, and it's replaced by Nakmor Drak in this one. And they're kind of very similar characters. There are situations that come up over and over again to do with the Krogan and the genophage, which is a disease that the Krogan have. The idea of that comes up, and they even name some of the planets and some of the locations after the places from the Milky Way. And it just feels like they're retreading a lot of ground. And some of the writing's really, really good. And that sells a lot of it. And then some of the writing's really, really dreadful. Like, really bad. Like, some of the incidental stuff is awful.
You're sitting here saying, Dan, this is a game you should play. You could play this one instead of the other ones.
But Dan, your teeth are going to feel great.
Yeah.
You will not regret it.
Yeah, you won't regret it.
You started this conversation by saying, I played this for 60 hours and it was just about worth it. If I'm playing a game for 60 hours, I want more than that.
But that's because I've played all the Mass Effect games. And I kind of went into this thinking, oh wow, what are they going to do with this? What are they going to do with these kinds of characters, these kinds of situations? And the answer is the same thing, which is okay. It's let down a lot by technical issues. So I'm playing the latest patch, and there's mad stuff that happens. Like, they forget to put loading screens up, and you see the world, the 3D physical world build, because there isn't just a black screen with a loading ticker. Like, you just see the world start to populate. It's weird, like, technical problems that go wrong, like bugs. And at one point, like, the textures of the characters just didn't show up. It was just the grey model of them. The game will just hang for like 3 or 4 seconds when you go into new areas. Like, it's really, really sloppy for a AAA game, to the point of it feels like, from like my experience of making games, it feels like it changed a lot during development, like a lot. But in terms of how it plays, Dan, Like, this is way more in your... I would say it's either this game or Mass Effect 2 that you would really, really love. Like, you can just drop Mass Effect 1. But Mass Effect 2 or this one, I think, would... You really like the action of Andromeda, because it's really thrilling to play. Some of the shootout sequences are absolutely phenomenal. And then I think you would actually see that Mass Effect 2 was a better game overall, but the shooting in that is not nearly as well developed as
Pete,
Andromeda.
Would you have played this if it wasn't in your pile of shame? Was it just the case that you played it because it was there and it was completing this set of Mass Effect? You're playing it just to complete a set? Or was there a genuine desire to play this game?
I bought it because I love Mass Effect.
Okay.
So, like, to the point of I'm actually strongly considering buying the spin-off novels. Yeah, I mean, I would have played it anyway, and I'm very interested in it. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to play it this year because I wanted to get it out of the way, because I just thought, you know what, this is going to be a big RPG that I need to get done so that I can de-stress. And, yeah, so thumbs up? So, for example, next year there is the new Super Mario Brothers game comes out on Switch, and like I'm just up for a 2D platformer, right? Like I'm up for revisiting my childhood in terms of like childhood platformers, right? Like that for me is, I just want to relax into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, childhood platformers, I've got you covered there. Because, lads, for Christmas, as it Christmas with a K, I got the Spyro Reignited Trilogy.
Oh, you've been excited about this.
Fun fact, did you know that only the first game is on the disc? So Spyro is a beloved game in my family. It's a game that my brother and my sister...
You so rarely ever mention it, Kris.
Quite a lot, I know. It's 20 years old, so it came out in 98, and I remember the year it came out. It was very interesting that Spyro and Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, I think if you press the coordination of buttons on the Spyro title sequence, you got the demo to Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, and vice versa. I think that's how it worked. Insomniac and Naughty Dog did something, or maybe something Sony did.
That's cool.
And it's not very sophisticated. It's not like Mass Effect. It's not 60 hours long. We're talking like 6.
Right. Okay.
Which I've completed it already, the first one, and I'll tell you why. It's basically a platformer where you are, and it's very sophisticated, a purple dragon with yellow horns, who essentially has to save the Dragon Kingdom, which consists of 5 worlds, from the villainous figure Gnasty Gnorc, and that's with silent G's on both those words.
Gnasty Gnorc.
Gnasty Gnorc.
Gnasty Gnorc.
And you essentially have to flame, charge, and glide your way through levels, rescuing dragons that have been trapped in crystal and collecting all the gems, which are from his minions and in chests and things that are scattered throughout. And the reason I love the game is, A, because each of the worlds is very distinct. You've got the Dreamweaver's world, which is very fantastical, and it's above the clouds. You've got the Beastmaker's world, which is in the swamps or in a bayou of some sort. But so each world is very distinctive. But it's about how those levels themselves are designed around just that mechanic of charge, fly, or flame. And it's very clever. Like some of the stuff it's doing in terms of level design, I just adore still to this day, where there'll be some levels where you're dropped in the middle of the level, and the level carries on behind you and in front of you. And there'll be one level, for example, where it's just a series of platforms, just trees, and you are gliding between trees. It's just beautiful. And trying to work out in your head the puzzle as to all the required charging ramps you have to hit in the right order to reach that far-off distant tree. And I didn't do the Crash Bandicoot. What's the new Crash Bandicoot remastered called? I can't remember.
Insane Trilogy?
Insane, that's it, right, Pete. So this game went through what's called a remastering. So it wasn't like they hadn't just increased the resolution of it. This is a company called Toys for Bob that took Insomniac Games' original and they rebuilt it from the ground up, from scratch. They had a blank canvas and they rebuilt it.
That's cool.
And it's incredible because it feels like when I was a kid playing it for the very first time. Everything feels the same way. And it was really weird. It feels a bit like I was in Chester a few weekends ago with my partner, and we had some friends visiting us from Germany. And we're in a music shop because my partner's learning the piano at the moment, and I'm trying to play a little bit as well. And there was sheet music there, and I found a copy of a piano book that I had as a kid. Except when I think of the one I've got, It's all scuffed up, it's faded and worn away. This is like a brand new version of that, and they haven't changed the inside of it, the illustrations or anything. It's like I've gone back in a time machine and plucked this out of the mid-80s, early 90s, nice. And it's exactly as it was when it was published. And it's like this. And it's quite bizarre at times because everything feels so familiar, but there are certain things that obviously haven't passed on into this remaster. So there are little things I knew in the game, like little glitches that I could get away with, or little quirky things I could do that aren't here. So it's that weird kind of sense of nostalgia where the past itself doesn't quite live up to the present. And that's not to render this game a disservice. It could never do that. But it does such a great job of it. It's one of the best remasters ever. Little things, like the guy who did the original music, I think, I can't remember his name, but you have the option where you can actually choose to have the old music playing while you're playing the remastered version. Nice. And it sounds really silly, but just having that there, it's just like 20 years ago. And it's just incredible. Like, I mean, it's like being in year 8 at school when I was at that time, and I'm playing Spyro.
Because it is... Nostalgia is a difficult line to walk. Because, like, to me, it's playing with fire. Because that evocation of your childhood, if it's not how you remember it, then it fails in what it's trying to do. But how you remember it is not necessarily how it was. So, like I think I've said this before on the podcast, but, like, I went back, like, I think a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and played Sensible Soccer, and... shouldn't have, because I remember it being really fantastic and great fun, and I played it recently and I was like, oh, this wasn't as good as I thought it was. So, like, how do these changes like actually like sit with you? Are they welcome changes? Do they ruin things? Do they
No, they really work. It's a bit like the Twin Snakes version of the original MDS.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because, like, when I look back at, and I've seen lots of side-by-side comparisons, it's amazing how, and it's not that amazing, I suppose, but how sparse the levels were in those games. And we just accepted that as kids because we kind of just filled in the gaps ourselves. Whereas now there's an expectancy that we should be able to stare off into the distance and see, get a sense that this little world exists within this far greater world. So it does that really, really well. I love the fact now that the dragons themselves are much more distinctively fitting in with the world they represent. So in the first world, the artisans' world, all the people, the dragons that you free, they're just dressed like Renaissance figures. It's wonderful. Like, they're painters, they're musicians, and it's just really lovely. There's little touches that don't get in the way of your memory of it. All they do is they strengthen it. They embellish it. It's beautiful. It's made with love. It really is made with love. And it's so wonderful when you make that trip down memory lane to find that it is just as good as you remember it being. And crucially, they've captured the feel of it. Like, if I close my eyes and the right coordination of buttons, I'm there. I'm back in it 20 years ago, which is a really tricky thing to do when you're building a game from the ground up.
I think with those kind of games where you're kind of, as you say, kind of using nostalgia to go back, I think a lot of the time it depends on the quality of that original game. Some of them can last. So I was going to ask you a question, but I think you've actually already answered it. Of, if I look at like two good examples of games that have been remastered, so I've played some of the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, and I'm a huge fan of Crash Bandicoot. I've played it over the years, and it's been great. When I played some of the new version, it felt just like Crash Bandicoot, but it just kind of felt like I was playing the game that I played all those years ago. I didn't really feel like I got anything more from it. Whereas on the flip side, if you look at Oddworld New and Tasty, I love the Oddworld games as well, so I played them when they first came out. Yeah. Playing Oddworld New and Tasty, which was a remaster of Abe's Odyssey, I think it was the first one, that was, a remake of Abe's Odyssey. Yes, it had everything from that original game and all that stuff, but it was such a great game, and the New and Tasty added certain elements, and I played it thinking, yes, this is reminding me of the old game, but I'm feeling like I'm playing something brand new, even though I wasn't, even though I still recognised the levels, I still recognised what I had to do, I still recognised certain puzzles and stuff, because it was the old game. And I think, by the sounds of it, with Spyro, it's falling a little more into the kind of the Oddworld camp, as opposed to the Crash Bandicoot, from what you're saying. I think that's kind of where it's sat for you.
Yeah, it's a funny one, really, because I think for me the question is about replayability, and I'm not going to be playing this game that often as I would say other ones. what I like about it is the fact that it's something like around this time of year. I love this time of year in the sense that I can put on me jumpers. I've got some lovely comfy jumpers I can just put on. Isn't that lovely? Yeah, that I can't get wear during summer, really.
Horlicks weather.
Well, actually, I live in England, so anything can happen. But it's that feeling, and I can just jump straight back into it. And it's like I never left 20 years ago. And to have a game which I can quickly do that with on a console, it's almost like a mobile game. I just boot it up and I'm in. And it's quite scary how much of the cognitive map of those games still sticks with me. Every secret, I just know where it is. Every pattern, every nook and cranny. And I found it in the boss battles. There were little things, tactics I would have with the boss battles that I just can't get away with anymore. And that's where I realised, actually, there's enough here that feels distinctive and different to keep me on my toes, but not enough that it feels like a brand new game. And I quite like that feeling, because it reminds me that I can't get complacent. I'm not watching a film where my hands are going into autopilot. That actually, there's still something left for me to think about when playing this game. I can't relax too much, and I quite like that fact still. And that's not just with the ebb and flow of time that has allowed me to let little things slip my memory. I like the fact that I still get caught out in places, and it's still just as challenging as it was when I first played it 20 years ago. But it was an absolute treat to get for my birthday. It really has been, and I've blitzed through it very, very quickly. And I'll probably, because there's two other games on the collection that I'm not too familiar with, I'm probably going to alternate playing those between other titles. I don't think I'd ever play 3 in a row. But yes, Spyro Reignited Trilogy.
Have you been keeping up with the Fallout 76 stuff? Have you heard about
this?
I haven't
about
the bag? Do you know the bag and the atoms? Have you not? Okay.
No.
This is brilliant. Like, we're not. This okay. So Fallout 76 is this. It's like a multiplayer version of Fallout. It's based on Fallout 4's engine, as far as I can tell. It's set in the world of Fallout, first-person, post-apocalyptic RPG kind of a game. It's like Elder Scrolls, made by the same people. This one's online. There's a bunch of weird design decisions that they made about the game, blah, 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 all this sort of stuff. People are like, this isn't very good.
They didn't particularly make it clear what the game was, did they?
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one. Like it's like somebody described it as a $60 mod for Fallout 4, and I was like, ooh. So there's all that, and I haven't played the game, so I can't speak to the quality of that. But what I can speak to the quality of, after reading a whole bunch of posts online, is the quality of the bag in the collector's edition that they did. So they did I think it was a $200, special fancy pants pre-order collector's edition, right? And all the imagery and stuff like that came with. The game came with it came with the game, and it came with some other bits and pieces, standard stuff you would expect, and then a helmet of one of the Brotherhoods of Steel, which is just some characters, stuff like that. So quite a distinctive looking, like, plastic helmet, whatever it was, and then a carry case, like a bag, like a rucksack, like a what's it called? A strap bag,
a tote bag.
No, like postmen have. Like a satchel. Satchel?
Yeah, satchel.
Like a satchel. And it looked great. Like, beautiful, like, really thick fabric, really, like, rugged, hard-wearing kind of stuff. So then they got delivered to people, and it turned out that beautiful-looking bag that was in all of the promo stuff that people based their $200 purchase on, that was all smoke and mirrors. Because the actual bag that they got was made of nylon. And, like, really horrible, thin, gross-looking nylon. And clearly, people have paid a lot of money for this, and they were not very happy about it. So there are images and threads on Reddit which are hilarious. Because basically there's people getting in touch with Bethesda quite politely and saying, I just wondered what you were doing about this, because this is not the bag that I ordered. This one's made out of nylon. Your one was made out of fabric. I was just wondering, like, are we going to get a replacement, or, like, can I get my money back, or something along those lines? And, like, the customer service team's responses was basically like, we're aware of the bag. We're not going to do anything about it. It was literally like they said, we're not going to do anything about it. And obviously that leaked out onto the internet and it blew up. So then Bethesda was like, oh god, okay, because it blew up and went out of control. They were like, oh, okay, fine, we'll deal with it. We'll give you some premium currency that the game uses, right? So in the game, you get like bottle caps or something like that, and it's basically this premium currency that you can get. And they said, we'll give you 400 bottle caps. And the equivalent was basically the cost of those bottle caps was $4, right? So instead of this bag, they gave them $4 worth of in-app stuff. And everyone was like, that's not very good. Again, to the point of one of the top posts on Reddit was the fact that there's a bag that looks very, very similar to the one that was in the photo that people got with the collector's edition that's actually in the video game, but the number of atoms that they gave you could not cover the cost of the digital version of that bag, right? So, absolute muck-up. And now, as of, I think, yesterday, it turns out that they were like, okay, we're going to deal with this. We're going to send out some better stuff, whatever it is. Just fill out this form on our website so that you can get, so that we can help deal with it. And it turns out that the form that they put in was massively insecure, and that if you went onto their thing, you could basically see people putting in their email details, like the worst, like the worst way they could have handled all of this. It's incredible, and it's just absolutely like shown up how I honestly, as somebody who works in the business, I have no idea how it got screwed up that badly. Like, it's like somebody said to me at work today, like, they should have just taken a week off. Like, they should have just like not done anything for a week. It would have been better than like how they've handled this thing. It's so poor. When I've been playing video games from my pile of shame or my POS, I went outside and I went to London. I didn't tell you, Dan, because I didn't think you'd be that interested.
Typical Pete.
I know.
He's done this so many. How many times has he done this to you, Dan? Where he's gone to London. I know London's a massive city,
It's
but
quite
still,
large. Yeah, it's quite a large city.
But I also work fairly near to central London, so you know it would be no problem for me to come in and meet him, so he wouldn't have to come all the way out to me or anything like that. But you just don't worry about any of that nonsense.
Just didn't bother it.
Pete, what happened last time I came to Bristol for work?
Hold on, you drove through Bristol like recently, and you didn't come see me.
But he let you know. He let us all know.
No, there is a difference between driving past a sign that says Bristol this way and relaxing and chilling out in Bristol. Last time I worked in Bristol, I tried to arrange to meet you for lunch, and you couldn't be bothered to walk to meet me.
No, that's not true. We went for burgers.
No, not the last time. The last time we tried to agree, and I was like, "Let's go. All right, let's get some sandwiches, and we'll go and eat at your house." I will walk that far, and you were like, "No, I'm too busy. I can't."
I was really busy. Yeah, I was really busy. Anyway, do you know what? Next time I will invite you to Dragonmeet because that's what I did.
I think I flew over your house as well, Pete. But I forgot to tell you.
Did you not?
When I went on holiday.
Did you not like pop in?
No.
Well, you should next time. Well, I'll invite both of you to Dragonmeet next time in London.
Dragonmeet? What's Dragonmeet?
So it is I guess you'd call it a convention. It's for pen and paper role-playing game.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And it is run by a company called Modifius, who are, funnily enough, they are the people what do the intellectual property of one of the games that we just made. So you can take any of this with a pinch of salt if you like. But anyway, they also do basically they're a company that makes pen and paper role-playing games. And I haven't played any of them. They're probably quite good. I don't know. But what they do is they do put on an event in London, a one-day event called Dragonmeet. And it is where a bunch of nerds get together and play pen and paper role-playing games and buy them and see new ones and play test card games and board games and stuff like that. And it's kind of like a small-scale UK Games Expo. So it's set over 2 floors, one of which is like massive, like, you know, a bunch of rooms where you can, you know, do RPG stuff if you want, or test new games. That was quite cool. Or there's a bring and buy, which we'll talk about in a second. And then there's the bottom floor, which is my favourite floor, which is where all the things are to purchase. And it's cool because there's like a mix of like pretty big scale RPG like companies. So Modifius is pretty big. There's another one called, I think they're called Cubicle 7, who do the One Ring role-playing game.
Yes, I have looked at that.
And also a bunch of other cool stuff. But also they have like smaller scale games as well, games and publishers as well. So, for example, the smaller scale stuff was really, really exciting and interesting. So I picked up... Basically, I went there for quote-unquote research purposes because I'm kind of like really interested in pen and paper role-playing games at the moment. Like, how do they work and why do people play them? And like, what are the different mechanics? Is it all just Dungeons and Dragons?
Which is actually interesting because when we first started playing... I mean, we've only played a couple of RPGs, and most of them have been ones that we've more or less made up ourselves.
Yeah.
But when we first started playing them, you were happy to kind of play along, but you were kind of... It wasn't this case, but you were very much kind of going against your better wishes that you didn't really want to play these, but we all were, so you're like, all right, then I'll play along.
Well, yeah.
In many ways, Dan, that's a kind of a metaphor for our friendship anyway, isn't it, really, in regards to Pete?
Yeah.
Yeah. We all end up just pretty much having to do what Pete wants to do because he gets moody if he doesn't.
I'm like, I want to play 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. I want
to play Worms.
I want to play Worms for no reason. So, yeah, I'm really interested in how they work. I guess the thing that I was really apprehensive with was I didn't want to, like... I don't feel like I'm very creative, or I didn't feel like I wasn't really in a headspace where I could feel like I was being creative or anything like that. And I didn't want to, like, make my own stories because I felt really uncomfortable doing that. And I'm actually kind of inspired by my trip to the point of I'm kind of toying around with the idea of, like, being silly and, like, maybe coming up with a small, stupid little system of my own. And like trying it on you guys at some point.
I would love that, Pete. Honestly.
So, yeah, I mean, I might give it a go at some point.
I think that's great.
Some of the
because we've all done it.
And honestly, I'm so grateful that you guys actually did push it through because if I hadn't played, is it called 10 Candles? No, not 10 Candles.
10 Candles, yes.
Yeah, but that was 10 Candles. You weren't there for that. That was me and Kris. Dread was the first one we did.
Yeah, if I hadn't played Dread, if you hadn't like pushed me into playing Dread, I don't think I would have played Paranoia. And like I played a bit of Delta Green before that, but I didn't really. I liked it, but like, it never really grabbed me or anything. So yeah, I'm really glad that you guys.
We've got the Batman RPG to play, haven't we?
We've got the Batman RPG to play
before we do anything. Yeah.
So I picked up some of the smaller scale stuff. I picked up a game called Mind Jammer. Don't know what that's about. I met the woman who made it, Sarah Newton, and she basically I talked to her about like how she makes games and stuff like that. I'm sure I bored her to tears. Really, I was just asking her about like why she turns up to these events and what she does, and it looks like a cool futuristic game. I'll look into that some more. Picked up a game called Nibiru. These are all quick start guides, by the way. So they were like.
I think it's important at this point to note that for Secret Santa this year, Pete has asked for an RPG game book, and then shortly after asking for this, he's gone ahead and bought a load of RPG game books. That's smart.
Is that a pile of shame I can see there down on Pete's desk?
Of modern RPGs, and these are also only the starters. So they're the things to basically like get you into the world and get you playing the mechanics really quickly, and then like you buy the core game itself. So I'm going to investigate those, and I'll report back my findings. And there was also a bring and buy. And I found...
Does that smile on your face?
So this was the dangerous one, but this is actually not for me. This is actually a gift for somebody. Because I thought it was the dumbest thing ever. I thought this was great. I was like, what kind of... You know me, I like sci-fi. I like Mass Effect, right? I like sci-fi. So what kind of... sci-fi role-playing. What kind of series would be perfect for that? You'd think maybe Star Trek or something like that. Maybe Star Wars, the classic Star Wars RPG. I know Modifius have got a Star Trek role-playing game. You'd think something along those lines. But you know what? You know what the fine people of Deep 7 thought? You know what they thought Deep 7 thought would be the best sci-fi IP to make an RPG out of? They thought, let's make a Red Dwarf role-playing game.
I would actually, joking aside, like to play that.
This looks dumb as hell. And the best thing about it is, my understanding is, on this, you don't get to play as Lister or any of the characters.
What?
Right. You just get to play in the rich universe of Red Dwarf, which I love. I mean,
it's a fantastic series. Fantastic British science fiction series sitcom.
Comedy. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. Really fun, really great, really enjoyable. But there's characters here like, do you want to go up against Captain Hollister? Do you want to go?
No, not really.
No, do you want to go?
He dies after the first episode. They only bring him back in series 8.
What about all these characters? You know, these really famous characters and races like the Kinita Wowie. You remember them?
Yes. Oh, they're really funny. Yeah.
So Pete wasn't expecting you to know that. I could see from his face.
Yeah, Lister gets engaged to one of them. They have this very bizarre language. Dan, have you seen Red Dwarf?
I remember that episode where he gets engaged to an alien.
Dan, which of the three of us do you think, and there is an answer, there is a right answer, would make the perfect rimmer?
Well, I mean, that goes without saying. It's Master Willington.
Can you just imagine with a little H on his forehead?
You can also play as Dwayne Dibley.
Dwayne Dibley, yep, the cat's alter ego.
You can play as... Actually, I don't even know if you can. I think you basically have just... I think they're just characters that maybe you can't... I don't think you can actually play as them. Anyway,
that's the joy of an RPG, Pete. You can do whatever you want.
You do whatever you want. Absolutely.
It's like when Sam fantasised about the idea of playing Alfred in the Batman RPG as a solo campaign.
Yeah, and I love that you used the phrase "fantasise" there. So I'm very excited. I'm going to give that as a gift to somebody. And
Pete, I'm acutely aware that of us, my birthday is next.
Yes.
I do not want the Red Dwarf role-playing game for my birthday. I'm putting that out there now. In a recording on the internet, and if we know one thing, if it's on the internet, it's 100% true.
Yeah. Go on. You just don't want that.
I don't want the role-playing game from Red Dwarf.
From Red Dwarf, you don't want.
It's your day, Dan. It's your day.
Well, I'll look into whether or not there's I don't know, what other role-playing game would you want?
I mean, I don't need a role-playing game. I have no one to play role-playing games with.
If you could have any IP that you've got, any brand, any like story, any world, any universe, and you were to have a role-playing game set in it, Dan, which one would you play in?
Well, there is an obvious answer.
Go on.
And it's probably an obvious answer that Kris would probably share with me.
Mm.
And the obvious answer is the world of Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, definitely.
There is, and outside of the main story, there is such a rich history that could be utilised in many different ways. Okay, I'd like to amend my earlier statement. Okay, Pete, I'm aware that my birthday is coming up next. Okay. I do not want a role-playing game.
Pete's nodding at you with a massive grin on his face.
So you could think about it. You could play big. You could be
Pete.
You could be a Sauron. Think about that.
Oh, you just made it worse.
You could.
You just made it worse by saying you could be a Sauron.
Yeah, you could be. Aren't they like lizards or something? The Sauron.
That's a salamander.
Oh,
easily mistaken. They often make that mistake in the books.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. The eye of a salamander is quite unnerving, but not as much as the eye of Sauron.
Of a Sauron.
Mm. It's another podcast, and we've also had another question. That's how many episodes in a row now?
I've lost track. There have been so many.
It's been really good. So we've had a question from Neil Bailey via Facebook. You can find us on @StayingInPod on Twitter and Facebook. You can also email us, stayinginpod@gmail.com. They sent a very nice message, and they said, an idea for next year's challenge, maybe stick with exercise, but go for a points score. So I guess kind of like an achievement system sort of thing. Like 5 points for 30 minutes in the gym, or 5K. 10 points for 60 minutes in the gym, or 10K. So like a point system that scales. Then each of you gets a Joker week. The rest choose where for that week you get double points, and you have to like aim for a target.
Zumba.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that's a good idea. We're going to keep it. We're going to put it into rotation as an idea. I think I quite like this idea as like having like I am compelled by things like achievement systems in video games. So having a point system that I can go for is, I mean, it's compelling.
I mean, we did give you kind of an achievement target system this year,
right? Yeah,
and you scoffed in our faces.
Still working towards scoffed in your face because I thought easy.
It's the hare and the tortoise, isn't it, Pete?
Exactly. I'm still working my way towards it. Don't you worry, I'll get there.
Well, it's not the hare and the tortoise when the hare has already won.
Yeah, it's fine. I do, but incentives, goals, those things get me. Kris, you say that you've had secret meetings with Dan and Sam.
Well, I basically, and this actually picks up on a subject that Dan actually mentioned beforehand. I ran an idea past Dan because, based on the idea, I thought Dan would be the most receptive because it's something we have sharing interest in.
It feels like subterfuge, but go on.
And Dan said, okay, it's at least twice the challenge we've had this year. Bit ambitious, Kris. I ran it past Sam. Sam was also quite keen, and I think the only thing I was worried about, Pete, and it's whether it would sit with you, not because you couldn't do it, but because I don't think it would have the same significance with you, because it is a geeky.
It's like peak geek.
Yeah, it's properly geeky, and it's basically to cover the distance that Frodo and Sam walked from Hobbiton to Mount Doom. Which, if you don't know, because somebody very kindly worked it out,
right.
And I'd like to give them credit, actually. The person in question is somebody called Matt's a Wizard, and this is on Imager, I found this. And the full distance is 1,350 miles, which is about 440 hours of walking. But he's broken it down into different sections, so it's the equivalent of walking from London to Serbia.
Oh, well.
Or for our American listeners, it's the equivalent of walking from LA to Austin in Texas. So, but he's broken it down into the different sections of the book, and I quite like the idea of being able to know where I am on that geography. A bit like what Dan was doing when he was talking about how you're still in Bletchley, Pete.
Yeah.
And, for example, there's something about being able to equate what I'm doing with but with a geography, a map of sort, that's what drives me, being able to see myself, like looking on a video game, where am I on the map, let's say, on an open world game. And I thought that'd be quite a lovely thing. It's sufficiently geeky. I mean, I won't be dressed as a hobbit while running, because that's just not practical,
nice idea.
Going barefoot.
Are you saying that this would be... So my question would be, would this count like everyday walking as well? Or would this just be when you are actively exercising at this point, and that is when the
you see, it's a good question. Because of the distance that's covered, I think it would count all types of movements, all kinds of walking or running.
Right.
I think that would be the best way. The only problem with it, and this is a problem we've had with the challenge this year, is it does emphasise the cardiovascular as opposed to anything that's weight training. I don't know. I mean, they ate a lot of food, so it was heavy lifting of food and things.
I would also argue
they rode
that
a bit of it.
Catching everyday walking would be difficult, just trying to record that.
Yeah, I mean, you could get one of those.
Like a pedometer, yeah. But I mean, Dan, the best thing to do is just, if you know roughly the distance, because I know you walk to your train station, don't you? Yeah,
so I mean, you can work it out. And if you've got regular walks, then yeah, you can absolutely do it regularly.
Yeah.
But not like, if I'm working from home and I'm walking from like my office to the kitchen, I'm not going to include that.
Okay. Well, okay.
Well, that is a very hobbity thing.
I was going to say, yeah.
As the distance is about 3 times the distance, the suggestion wasn't that we would do all of this in a year.
Because right.
That would be a bit
We've got to
crazy.
make it at least a trilogy, Pete.
Oh, God. Just overextended and overrated. So I would say then that that's a cool idea, I guess, maybe. But let's keep thinking, because, like,
I love the fact that Pete's like, let's keep thinking. He's not going to do any of these ideas.
That's a big distance, isn't it? That's such a distance. Let's circle the wagons and come back to it later.
Let's put a pin in that.
Let's put a pin in it. But anyway, so Neil Bailey also has a question for us.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you, Neil.
Yes, thank you, Neil. We're gonna go with what I think is the best question in the list, which is, what's your favourite Christmas film and why? And this is my part of this now. I'm reading into this. I don't want us to argue over what the definition of a Christmas film is. I think basically, as long as it's got Christmas in it to some extent, or it feels like a film you would watch at Christmas, I think that's enough, because I'm fine with that. And my answer to that one is Home Alone.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something like The Great Escape, because that used to be on every Christmas.
Yeah, that would be valid. I would accept it. But no, for me, it's Home Alone.
Home Alone, yeah. John Williams' score as well. It is such a beautiful Christmassy, family, cuddly, cosy soundtrack.
I don't know anything like that, but basically, like, I just like the idea. I think I like the idea of, like, being that young again and being alone in a house with a Nez
and setting traps for your family,
setting traps for weirdos. Yeah, and actually, when you think about that film, now I'm thinking about it, that kid is messed up. Like,
have you seen that YouTube clip online where a physician looks at the footage of what the two crooks go through, and actually explains what physical toll it would take on their body?
Yeah,
it's extraordinary.
Yeah, when you watch it probably as an adult, and you actually see the actual damage, like the guy has like a hot iron dropped on his face. I mean, come on.
I mean, even like the micro machines, you would have like broken your back the way they landed.
Yeah, and like they get.
He puts upturned nails on. Makes someone walk barefoot over upturned nails.
He's a really quite violent child, and I think I like that. Basically, so
what about in the second one where he just lobs bricks at their heads?
I love the idea that the scriptwriter was just like, he lobs a brick at his head. So what would you choose, Dan?
Well, it's there is only one right answer.
Okay, yeah, well,
it's the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Dan, you're absolutely right.
It's a strong choice.
It's not just a strong choice; it's the only choice. Muppet Christmas Carol is the greatest Christmas film of all time.
I've watched it every year since I think 1994 when it came out.
Yeah,
I have it on DVD. Right for me. But it's funny that Dan, you'll know this, but the DVD doesn't include one of the songs that's on the original VHS version of the film.
Yeah, but it's a song that everybody skips.
Yeah,
nobody lingers around for a ballad.
It's pretty
by
boring. It's pretty
his
morose.
nephew.
You hear it in the end credits, but it's a great film because A Christmas Carol is my favourite Christmas story, and obviously that idea of redemption, this Grinch-like crotchety figure redeeming himself and learning the meaning of Christmas, whatever that is for you, it just never gets old for me. And I watch A Christmas Carol in all its forms, even like the Patrick Stewart version with Richard E. Grant as Bob Cratchit, Scrooge, Bill Murray. It's a Wonderful Life is a bit of a story of redemption, isn't it, really?
Scrooge with Bill Murray is probably, I'd give an honourable mention to, because I watch that every year as well. Yeah. It's a great film.
But and there's also the Blackadder Christmas Carol, which subverts it. Yeah. Where he starts off as a really nice person and becomes an arsehole overnight when he learns about how bad his ancestors were. But it's just a lovely film. And I know, it's a bit like you and Hamilton, Dan. I just know the songs inside out.
Yeah. I think the best thing about it as well is, as with Scrooge, you have Michael Caine, a serious actor, playing it dead straight when surrounded by Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy, and he just plays it dead straight, and it's just perfect.
That was Staying In with Dan Frost, Peter Willington and myself, Kris Darby. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to leave a review too, we'd be really chuffed to bits. Merry Christmas.